Hi, everybody. So we are just about to get started. I'm going to give folks just another minute to get in here, and then we'll get started right at 2 o'clock, I think. So if you haven't already, unless you have a question, go ahead and make sure you're on mute. So you can find your mute button. It looks like the little microphone towards the lower part of your screen. Okay, great. All right, if you haven't done so already, I put a number of helpful handouts from the Cass County Health Department over in the chat to the side. So if you don't see your chat, it looks like this little speech bubble also towards the bottom of your screen in your toolbar. So you can hit that at any time and get access to any of those things that might make sense for the type of product you plan to sell at the market this year. Okay. All right, so it's 2 o'clock, so we'll go ahead and get started. Let me just make sure that everybody can hear me. So to make sure you can hear me, if you can hit this raise your hand button, it looks like a hand in the chat. Okay, perfect. I see everybody's hands raising, so everybody can hear me. Awesome. Thank you. Okay. So we'll go ahead and get started. Today we're going to cover a pretty simple agenda of things, but this is going to be what's going to get you prepared for our upcoming season. We'll also, quickly cover the rules, what our COVID-19 precautions are going to be, as at least at the start of the season, and then we'll have an opportunity for you to put your name down for a seasonal spot if that's something that interests you and makes sense for how you plan to participate in the season. So I'm going to go ahead and pull up our agenda here real quick. Actually, let me do this. Let me send everybody a copy of that real fast. So I'm going to add it to our chat here. So you've got a copy of that handy, of course, a copy of the rules and all that information. I hope you already have that handy. If not, you can get that at lovethesquare.org farmers market. And so you probably did that, which is how you found the information for today. So that's down on that information for vendors section. Okay. And I'm going to pop this into our chat too. So everybody's got our agenda. Okay. All right, so look for this in your chat. Again, it looks like that speech bubble. So if you'd like to look at that along with me, you can do that too. But basically, we're just going to start by saying, welcome to everybody. So I see some returning vendors here. I think we have some new folks too. So hi, everybody. I'm excited about the season. I think we're going to have a great year. I already told you about that helpful information I put in the chat. I do want to let you know we have a farmers market vendor group on Facebook. If you haven't already joined this, as part of a past season, make sure that you do this. This is really a great way for us to communicate back and forth during the season, especially when things happen like, a rain delay, or we've got weather, or, and we have to, kind of quickly get a hold of folks to let them know what's going on. So if you haven't found that yet, it's called the Harrisonville Farmers Market Vendors Groups. I've got the instructions on the agenda I sent you, but basically search for this. When you get there, I'm in my admin view right now, but you'll have a button down here that says, join you click that, and as long as I've received your vendor information form, I will go ahead and let you in to this vendors group so you can get those communications throughout the season. Not too difficult, but it is very helpful for you to have that. Okay, moving right on along here. Something that I'm really excited about that I'll share with you all. So in the off season, I was able to apply for a Missouri Department of Agriculture promotional marketing grant for the farmers market. So you may have already seen some of this. We've got a lot of really cool things happening. So we have some advertising that will be running all season long in the local paper. We're getting some new signs, some new banners that'll hang up on Lexington Street where we set up throughout the season, flyers, a whole lot of great things that are going to help us advertise the market. But I always have this ask for everyone, which is for you to help spread the word about the Harrisonville Farmers and Artists Market too. So as you probably know in your own lives, word of mouth is huge. So be sure that you're telling your friends, family, neighbors, coworkers, right, about the farmers market, that you plan to be there and that it's going to be a great season. So, whether that's talking to folks, sharing it on, Facebook, whatever the case may be, I always encourage you to do that and start now. So folks get excited about opening day, which leads us right into our important dates section, which is opening day is going to be June 5th this year. So that kicks off the season. And then our next big event I want to make sure you kind of start thinking about early is the bicentennial birthday block party. So kind of our parent organization, Love the Harrisonville Square, is sponsoring this. It's a celebration of the state of Missouri turning 200. So it's really kind of a celebration that happens, really only once. There are going to be a lot of fun things happening on the historic Harrisonville Square that day, including we'll be celebrating National Farmers Market Week that happens to land on the same day when we would normally celebrate that. So we're going to have our normal festivities going on, some fun contests for folks to participate in. We'll also be having the antique transportation shows, old tractors, antique cars, bicycles, motorcycles, a little bit of everything turns up for that. So that'll be going on that day, as well as we're bringing in a stage. So we'll have some live stage performances. We've got a dance group that's coming. We have some kind of some fun old-timey vaudeville kind of performers that are going to be doing several performances that day. There's just going to be a lot going on. And actually, those activities extend through the evening, where the whole day is going to wrap up with a bluegrass concert and street dance from like 7 to 9. But since there's a lot going on that day, you as a farmers market vendor will have the opportunity to stay and sell longer that day, because we expect that we're going to have a nice turnout for that. And so I know, if we've still got customers in the area, you might want to stay and sell to those folks that are visiting us. So you will have the option to stay open until 2 p.m. that day. So normally we would close at noon, but you have those extra hours available to you. I will be checking in with everyone, of course, as we get closer to August 7th. So that's not something you need to commit to now. I just want to get that date in your head as something extra special that'll be happening that day. All right. Next up, our last regular market day. So our last day on Lexington Street for the season will be September 25th this year. But we do have one additional selling opportunity. That happens at the Log Cabin Festival on October 2nd is its date this year. If you've participated in that in the past, it'll be similar. So we won't set up on Lexington Street, which is our normal location, but we will set up within the festival grounds. Usually that is a kind of grassing area that's about a block and a half east of where we'd normally set up. And you have the opportunity to really sell as long as you'd like to that day. So if you want to come in the morning and sell into the late afternoon or evening, that's completely something that you can do to take advantage of that, festival traffic that's there. Usually we're located like right next door to the carnival. So we, get a number of folks that are come over and check us out. We'll also be listed on all of the festival marketing materials and the maps and stuff of where things are happening that day. So to do that, just like our market, there is no fee to sell with us at the Log Cabin Festival, but there is an important rule that you have to be sure that you meet, and that is that we ask anyone who's going to sell the Log Cabin Festival as part of the market to have been a regular participant in the regular market, right? At least for a month worth of market, so that's our way of saying, please don't come September 25th, right on the last market day, and expect to have one of those no cost, opportunities to sell at the Log Cabin Festival. We open that up to the folks that have really been a part of the market for the regular season. Okay, so I'm gonna stop there. I'm gonna bounce back over here to our chat and stop to see if anybody has any questions before we start talking about the rules. If you have questions, you can pop them in the chat by hitting your conversation bubble and just typing it in, or take yourself off mute by hitting your microphone if you have questions about anything I covered so far, and I'll pause just for a second to give you an opportunity. Excellent. All right, we must all be good. So we will continue on to talk about the rules, and we'll also cover some of the public health guidelines that will be in effect at least as we start the season. So again, this information is already available to you on the Farmers Market webpage. Most of these rules, I think if you've been a vendor with us in the past, I don't think we had any real changes from last year, but for my new folks, we're going to run through these, and it's always a good refresher for our seasoned folks as well. So as I'm sure you probably have seen already, our farmers market does not charge a vendor fee for any of our spaces. It's just not part of our mission of entrepreneurship and encouraging folks to bring the amazing things that they grow and make in our area to the folks of our community. So no vendor fee will apply. We do, of course, have rules that we ask everyone to follow, and market management. So that would be me, Amanda Stites, and some of our other folks that help with that. We do reserve the right to refuse entry to any vendor who's not complying with the rules, and to make additional requests as we see fit, especially anytime we're talking about a potential vendor or customer safety issue. Okay, all right, here are the rules. All products sold must be produced, grown, or harvested within 35 miles of Harrisonville. I always add a little extra information on this rule because 35 miles is a big radius, but sometimes I talk to folks that think maybe they're right on the edge of that, or maybe they're 36 miles, depending on how you measure from what part of Harrisonville. So if you're ever in one of those situations, just ask, and I will help you figure that out. Number 2, vendors must comply with all local, state, and federal regulations that apply to the products. These include, but are not limited to, and you can see the list here. I'm going to just cover a couple that I get the most questions on. One being scales. So if you plan to take things to market like produce and sell them by the pound using a scale to weigh them, that scale should be a scale that is certified and in compliance with the Missouri Department of Weights and Measures. So you can find their information by just doing a quick Google search and getting on asking for your scale to get certified. It's not a costly process or a time-consuming one. It's just something to do. If you are selling produce and you don't want to mess with having to do that, but you just want to sell what you have, a lot of folks at the market will just sell by the piece, or buy 4 tomatoes for whatever price you want to put on it. So that's also an option. I get a lot of questions about sales tax being collected. So we do want you to go through the really easy process, honestly, of getting your state sales tax set up. So again, it's as quick as doing a Google search. You fill out some very basic information, and for
it's one of those days.
I'll just remind everybody, if you don't have a question, make sure you're on mute. But that sales tax, it's easy to get signed up to be able to do that. And for most of our vendors, based on how much you're making at the farmers market during the season, you'll end up only having to pay in your sales tax owed once a year. So it's really not that bad. That said, the farmers market does not go through your financial records, right? We're not going to check. That is completely kind of an honor system type thing. But if you need help getting pointed in the right direction, I can certainly help you, send you to the page where you need to go. All right. Any kind of health department regulations for products that you're selling. So these are going to be food items, and you can see I've got a few of those noted here. So things that are ready to eat, things that need to be labeled. That's any kind of baked goods, honey, any food items need to be labeled. And eggs also have their own set of requirements, including egg licenses and being able to keep them at a safe temperature. So the information that I put in the chat, those links to the helpful resources I mentioned, will help you with those kinds of questions. The Cass County Health Department is also a great resource. You can call and ask them questions. I'm usually also able to kind of help point you in the right direction and answer some questions to make sure that you're thinking and doing the things that you should be. So you can send those questions to me in email, on Facebook message, or you can ask them today when we wrap up our session, because I'll hang out here for a little bit to see if you have questions for me. All right, number 3, products sold that are not produced or harvested by the vendor that sells them must display an informational placard stating the source of the item. Products not produced by the vendor are subject to approval by market managers and cannot comprise more than 33% of the products sold by the vendor. This one sounds a little complicated. What it really means is that if you are bringing something that maybe, say you didn't grow it, but you have, a family member or a neighbor that grows something that you don't, and they said, hey, would you take this to market and sell it for me? You certainly can do that. But we ask you to be honest with your customers and tell them where it came from. So that's that informational placard that says, hey, this is where this came from and how I got it. So that honesty is the best policy is this rule. And of course, we want you to be bringing things that you're growing. So we just ask that we do not allow vendors who are completely resellers. We want you to be growing and making some of the products that you sell too, which is the second part of that rule. If you have questions about whether or not something that you may be selling would fall into that category, just ask me. I am happy to help. For handcrafted items, they're allowed. We just have a rule that nothing that's mass produced or made of mostly mass-produced items are allowed. So again, this is if you're ask me if you're not sure, but basically you want things that you're bringing to be special and not something that, you know, folks could drive up the road to Hobby Lobby and go pick up. So we want things to be unique and special, things that you're making yourself. Number 5, please don't bring live animals and, you know, weapons and alcoholic products, right? Stuff that we wouldn't want to sell at the market, can't be sold at the market. I do have a couple of questions sometimes about like knife sharpening. That's okay. Just, you know, make sure you talk to me about those things first. But live animals, I get questions about that too. Like, well, can I bring an animal to just show, you know, from my farm, kind of a petting zoo type situation? And actually, yeah, we're open to that. You just cannot sell that animal to a customer and they take that animal with them while they're at the market. So ask if you've got questions on any of that. 6, vendors. You cannot set up your space until after the street barricades are in place in the morning. That is a safety issue. We set up at 7. You must be in the market and unloaded and ready to go by 8 a.m. So if you cannot be there and in place by 8 a.m. and have your vehicle out of the customer area, you will not be allowed to sell that day. Because again, it is a safety issue. Most Saturdays we have some early bird customers that are going to start rolling in before 8 a.m. opening time, so it becomes a safety problem for us to have vendor vehicles still driving actively through the market area. The market closes at noon, so be prepared, right, to pack up and get out of the market area as soon as possible so we can open back the street back up. And if, you know, life happens, we know that, you know, you've got plans sometimes in the summer or something's going on and you do need to leave early, that is okay. Just please make sure you notify me or one of the other helpers there so we can make sure, again, that you get in and out of the market area safely. We do reserve the right to close the market for any length of time due to public safety concerns, and this can include lightning and severe storms. If you've been a vendor with us in the past, you well know there's usually one Saturday. Usually it's not multiple. It's one Saturday where we kind of have to go through this because a storm is in the area. The way that'll work is we will batten down the hatches. I will ask you to go to your vehicles or to another safe space, like inside of a building, and we'll wait that out and reopen the market as soon as we can. Number 8, vendor vehicles are not allowed in the market area after opening. We kind of talked about that, unless you have special permission from me. And we do ask that you park away from the immediate market area. So we want the parking closest to the market to be open for our customers. Customers want to park close so they can come shop and carry their things back to their vehicle. So the side streets are a great option. There's a large parking lot near the market. That's also a great option. Again, if you have questions when you arrive to the market, just ask. 9, our spaces are roughly 10 by 10 in area. If you have food products, this really applies to them. Don't put the food items on the ground that you plan to sell. So get them up on a table in a basket, right? They should just never touch the bricks. Clean up after yourself. And we'll talk about the seasonal space and per day spaces here in a second. Here at number 9, I'm going to add a side note. So you may notice here we did make a slight change. So if you are selling any kind of food item, this includes produce, you are going to be required under the Cass County Health Department rules to have a canopy or another protective, shade mechanism that covers your food from the elements. Okay. If you are selling exclusively crafts, so no food items of any kind, you're not technically required to have a canopy or that shaded protection from the elements. I still very highly recommend it. You will want it. It's a little bit of an investment, or you could see if you could borrow something from someone, but I do recommend that. And I also highly recommend having something to weigh it down. You know, we have a lot of days where it's a little on the breezy side, and those canopies can take off on you if you're not careful in the right amount of wind. So just some things to think about. And finally, number 10, we're a no smoking market. So if you are a smoker, be sure you take a break, you know, walk to a different area outside of the market grounds, and then come back when you're ready. All right. I'm going to stop there and see if I have any questions. I'm going to pop over here to the chat. Okay, I do have a couple questions. Yeah, and thanks for helping with, you know, egg questions, Bob and Lori. They're very experienced with that. They're great resources. Dogs are allowed. So if you're going to bring a dog, just make sure, you know, they're leashed. So that is a city rule. So they'll have to be leashed and, you know, fairly well behaved. Always helps, but you're going to see lots of pooches in the area. Our customers also love to bring their dogs. Okay. All right, now let's talk about the COVID-19 rules that are going to be in effect as we start this season. So I'm going to hop over there and we'll talk through these. So folks that did our season last year, again, these are going to look a little bit similar. We have been able to relax a few things. If I will preface this whole thing with if the guidelines change, so if the CDC changes their guidelines, and I do think that that might happen at some point during the summer for outdoor events like ours, we will adjust accordingly. But right now, this is what we plan to move forward with as we start the season. If that does happen, I'll make sure I notify everyone. So basically, we have some market protocols. We're always going to have some hand washing stations available. That's something that the Cass County Health Department also encourages us to do, no matter what. So, you know, we encourage you by hand washing and sanitizer to keep your hands, you know, nice and clean through the day. Our customers also appreciate seeing that you're doing those things. We're going to have some safety guidelines on display for you as well as our customers. We're still offering the first hour of the market to any customers that, you know, may have health complications as a special time for them. And, you know, we're just following guidelines as they change. For vendors, for you specifically, you will be required to wear a face covering, a face mask, when you're interacting with a customer. If you are not interacting with a customer, so it's just you in your booth, then it is okay to take a break from the mask. But again, when you're serving a customer, it's mask up. So just be prepared for that. Again, we want you to practice proper hand sanitation techniques. So plan to bring some sanitizer along when you can't get to that hand washing station. We encourage folks, if you have a helper with you that day, to have one person handling money and another person handling products. I think you've all heard, right, that the money just on its own carries a lot of germs sometimes. So that's a good way to handle that. Of course, if you're not staffed to do that, sanitizing your hands after you've touched money is a great way to address that. And then, you know, anytime you can pre-sell items, that's great. That's just helpful on its own. And then finally, if you're sick, please stay home. So don't come to the market if you're not feeling well. Take a weekend off, right? Get feeling better and come see us the next week. All right. And I'll go see if we had any questions about that. Doesn't look like it. Perfect. All right, let's talk about seasonal spaces. This will be the last thing we talk about before you'll have an opportunity to put your name down for a seasonal space if that's something that makes sense for you. So the seasonal spaces are one of the types of space that we offer at the market. I'm going to cover the other two first, though. So the first option for any of our vendors is a per day space, which is just like it sounds. So if you're not sure how often you'll be able to be at the market, maybe you can only commit to it maybe once a month, or just, when you have certain things in season, but really aren't able to be there June through September. A per day space is probably a great fit for you. How that works, it's very easy. You just come to the market between 7 and before 8 to give yourself enough time, of course, to be in place by opening. And you say, hey, I'm here for the day. I'd like a space. And I will find you a space for the day. Nice and easy. I will tell you, even though I expect that our market is going to grow in size this year based on the interest we've had, I have never turned a vendor away because we don't have enough space. We will find you a space. We have a large area that we can grow into. So the other type of space, I won't spend a ton of time on this, but we have a community space that we always make available to other nonprofits in the area, folks that are maybe doing a fundraiser or, outreach to the community for different events. So we usually have the Missouri Extension Office come visit us, the library folks come visit us, the Historic Society, folks like that. So if you're part of a group and you're interested in taking advantage of that, just let me know, and I'm more than happy to get you hooked up with that community space. Now let's talk about the seasonal spaces. So if you are a vendor who plans to participate really in the majority of the season, so you plan to be there in June and you also plan to be there in September, and maybe, you have a couple of days that you're, out of town or something else going on, that's totally fine. But you're still really making a commitment to be with us over the course of the summer. If that sounds like you, then you're invited to ask for a seasonal space. Those are, just like any other space, they're 10 by 10. And ultimately, I have the go through and I'll, make the decision on who gets that space if we have multiple people interested in the same space. The way that I do that is I look at the kind of products that you're selling, and I also look at things like how many years you've been a vendor with us and make those types of decisions. But here's how that works, the seasonal space itself. So that would be considered, your reserved space until 7:15 in the morning on the market day. 7:15 is the magic time when, if I have not heard from you, you have not, texted me or messaged me that morning or talked to me in advance, to say that, you are still on your way at 7:15, then I consider your space vacant for the day. And I will fill it with someone who's there for a per day space. Because I don't like to have big holes in the market whenever we can. So I will fill that up with someone else. If you are, running late and you do let me know, I will hold your space for a while. But remember, you still have to be in and set up in your vehicle out of the area by 8 a.m. So if you arrive at 8:02, I'm going to say, I'll see you next Saturday. Okay. Seasonal spaces that remain unused for more than 3 weeks of the season, I will consider those forfeit, and I will reassign it to someone else who maybe is interested in that seasonal space. So for example, sometimes this happens where folks will sign up for a seasonal space and then I won't see them all of June, right? So that puts them past the 3 weeks, and I will reassign that space to someone else. So again, the bottom line here is that communication is key. If you let me know what's going on, then I can help. So with that said, let me go over and show you the map of the available spots, and then I will see what spots you're interested in to sign up. So this is, let me actually zoom out just a hair here. So this is a map of the square. Lexington Street is where we set up. So as you can see, I have 27 available spaces there to fill this street. As I said, we have the opportunity to grow. So if we get big enough, I can actually take over part of Pearl Street too. But what you'll do is you'll look at these numbers and you're going to tell me what space maybe you're interested in reserving. Now, I'll come back to this screen, but we had our meeting yesterday, so folks also at that meeting had the opportunity to start getting, their interest down for spaces. So you see we have a number of folks that said, I'm interested in a seasonal space, and they had the opportunity to put their name on it. So this is a list so far. But as I mentioned, this is not a permanent list right now, so you're free to put your name down for any of the spaces. I will take all of that information into consideration along with the types of products that you sell and how long maybe you've been a vendor with us. Might shuffle you around a little bit depending on how the market best comes together. And then I'll communicate back to everybody once the list is final, so you know where your reserve spot will be. So I'm going, let me do this. I'm just going to kind of see if I can pull these both up together. Or let me see if I'll just share this. So. All right, so I'm going to put in the chat the list, and then I'm going to leave up the map so you can see the numbers. You tell me in the chat, just put the number that you'd like to be considered for in the chat, and I'll leave the map up. So once you've done that, if you don't have questions for me, that's the last item on our agenda today. As I mentioned, once that list is final, usually it takes me, I'll probably have it back out to everybody in the next week or so. But I will get that communicated well in advance of the start of the season. And if you do have questions, feel free to unmute too, since I'm not in the chat right this second, but I'll flip back and forth and check.
Amanda?
Yeah.
I would also like to add on the COVID. Even if you are vaccinated, you still need to wear a mask. Being vaccinated, all it does is lessen your symptoms. It does not stop you from getting it.
Yeah, and that's and right now that is the CDC rule. So that's a good call out, Lori, because we will follow the CDC's most current recommendations.
And also the hand sanitizer, about checking where it's made from. Make sure that it's a reputable company that is making it, because as it was noted by Arsenio yesterday, there are hand sanitizers out there that using them over a long period of time, it will make you sick.
Yeah, so Arsenio brought out, I think there are some that are, I think there's a different type of alcohol used. Anyway,
yes.
Just be sure it's something that you've used maybe before and you know works well for you. Good call out. Thank you. All right, I'm gonna pop back to the chat here for just 1 second, and I'll pull the map back up to see. Okay. All right. So let's see. Okay, I don't see anybody that's put a seasonal space number in the chat for me yet. If you don't want to put it in the chat, you can also just take yourself off mute and let me know. I'll pull that map back up in case you're still thinking about that. But once you've done that, or if you're not interested to do that, you're welcome to leave. Or if you have questions, you can take yourself off mute. Ask me any questions you might have. Of course, you can also send any questions you might have to that Harrisonville Farmers Market at gmail.com, or you can go to the Harrisonville Farmers and Artists Market Facebook page and just send a message there, and that'll get to me as well.